Good afternoon, and congratulations for sticking to the end, although I'm afraid the attraction might be the cocktail hour to follow rather than this panel, but we're going to do our best to change that and make it worth your while. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Elisabeth Tweedie. I've earned these grey hairs. I've been in the industry for quite a while. Started my career with Hughes, doing international business development and corporate strategy. Founded Definitive Direction in 2002, where I was doing market analysis and business plans for companies in the satellite industry. Started writing for one of the satellite magazines 15 years ago. Still do that, and also do a lot of ghostwriting. So that's me, and that's where my grey hairs came from. I have a very interesting panel here who are going to make great strides on this topic, which is very important because according to a recent report, the global space economy is worth 572 billion euros this year, projected with a 9% CAGR to come out to 1.6 trillion euros in the next 10 years. There are about 50,000 satellites in orbit now. Sorry, there are 50,000 satellites expected to be in orbit by 2035. So, vastly growing industry. This afternoon, Malachy Devlin, CEO of Celestia, made an interesting quote, which is, "You can never do anything yourself." And that is the subject of this panel, is the cooperation between international agencies and regional agencies to make this development happen, what we've done in the past and what we're going to do in the future. So on my left here, I have Nicolaus Hanowski, ground segment operations for ESA. We've got Timothy behind me now. Okay. Hi, Timothy. Behind me, I have Timothy Ashong, the Secretary General of RASCOM. The lady on the stage, Dr. Ulpia-Elena, the UN representative on so many committees that I don't think we could actually list them all, but the two we're going to focus on here today are COPIAS, the Committee on Peaceful Use of Outer Space, and ATLAC, the Lunar Activities Committee. And on the end here, another consultant, John Yates. And I'd like each of you to go through and tell me a bit about yourself, your background, and your organization to start off. So I'll start with you, Nicolaus, since you're right here.
Yeah, I'll use both microphones. Maybe that works even better. So, Nicolaus Hanowski, I'm with the European Space Agency. I'm responsible for mission management and ground segments, in particular in the Earth observation context. But I will try also to illustrate a little bit how this pertains to communications and even navigation aspects. My background is, I come actually from the science domain. I was part of the science directorate involved in the science operations of missions such as Bepi Colombo, Rosetta, and Plato, for example, or the James Webb Space Telescope. And now I'm responsible for the operations of the Copernicus Sentinels, the Earth Explorers, and we are running a big machinery on data management at the European Space Agency, which includes a lot of commercial data, third-party mission data, national mission data. And if I would try to extend my invitation to consider a little bit how your industry, your community can contribute to this, maybe just a few figures. So the overall budget of the European Space Agency, which is comprised of 23 member states, this year is 7 billion euros. The Earth Observation Directorate, which I'm representing, has a budget of 34% of that overall budget. So we are more than a third of the overall volume of the European Space Agency in terms of budget. And in terms of data management, ground segment activities, I'm spending annually about 500 million euros in terms of industrial contracts. And again, this, I think, is the starting point for discussions also about the future of the funding profile of the European Space Agency, which is determined by ministerial meetings every 3 years, and we have one coming up in 2 months, or even in 1 month. And that's a very crucial time for us. So that would be my quick introduction.
Good afternoon. Ulpia-Botezatu. I am the current chair of the Scientific and Technical Subcommittee of the UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. That's a very long title. I'm also the co-chair, together with Pakistan, of Action Team on Lunar Activities Consultation, which is also under the UN COPOS. Now, what the UN COPOS does, it's basically a committee that deals with the peaceful uses of outer space, discuss with the member states what are the guidelines for the future, and agree by consensus, or don't agree by consensus, whatever we have to do forward. In Action Team on Lunar Activities Consultation, we aim to bring together all the member states which are interested in advancing lunar activities in a sustainable manner. And by that, I mean also looking at the cislunar space. We're also looking at the cislunar economy. We're looking at the PNT in the lunar orbits. We are looking on lunar resources. We are looking at every aspect that relates to lunar activities in general. And my third hat is also that I'm a researcher and a policy officer with the Romanian Space Agency, which is part of the European Space Agency. My field of expertise is really SST and not Earth observation, but space surveillance and tracking. And I represent Romania in various places on space surveillance and tracking, SSA, and space traffic management.
John Yates, at the moment I'm a freelance consultant. I've been working in the European commercial space sector for around about 40 years now. Of particular relevance to this discussion, I was the UK delegate to the European Space Agency with responsibility for SATCOMs for 5 years, and I saw first-hand experience of how a collaborative effort by European countries could produce, could engage projects and produce results that no individual member state could actually achieve on its own. And we've seen that. There are many examples across Europe. So I'm a personal strong advocate of regional initiatives, but we'll talk about later. But then also of particular relevance, I was engaged to deliver a developing countries program across Africa. So for about 12 months, I was engaged with many African countries about putting SATCOMs into their country. There's been multiple studies by financial institutions such as the IMF and World Bank which show that if you invest in the communications infrastructure in the country, be it telecoms, roads, ports, airports, then the economic development, economic growth of that country follows. That's irrefutable. So the idea of this was of the program I was engaged in, was to show countries how they could implement SATCOMs in their individual countries. However, it will be unrealistic to expect individual countries to buy a satellite and put it in orbit. But collectively, you can achieve that. And I think we've had RASCOM, and I'm sure Timothy will talk about that later. But also with the newly founded African Space Agency, I have great hopes for that in terms of delivering Pan-African space programs. So that's my background of relevance to this discussion, and I hope I hope it's an interesting chat. Thank you.
Yes, I can hear you very faint, but I'll try to put my head down to hear the question.
Okay, so if you can hear me a bit better now, I've got the microphone. It would be great if you could introduce yourself, your background, and explain what RASCOM does.
No, I didn't hear any of what you just said. Previously, it was okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we have any means of connecting more with him?
Yes, okay. I can hear you now.
You can hear me now when I turn my back to you? Okay. Well, excuse my rear. Could you please introduce yourself, your background, and RASCOM and what RASCOM does?
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening and good evening to you, moderator, and good evening to my fellow panelists, and also good evening to the audience as well. I'm very sorry I have to speak from a booth because I'm attending a space sustainability meeting at the ITU. So physically, I was not able to be there. I'm very sorry for that. I hope to do better next time. So please allow me. My name is Timothy Ashong. I'm the Director General of the Regional Africa Satellite Communications Organization, which is RASCOM. RASCOM was formed as an instrument to champion satellite communications in Africa, and through the communique within the African Union organization, then the AOU, now African Union, RASCOM was established. And RASCOM was formed in 1992. And it is to champion satellite communications connectivity in Africa to help bridge the digital divide. RASCOM is currently based in Côte d'Ivoire. That is where it is headquartered. And it includes 45 member states. And we are yet to, probably next month, we are going to sign on the 46 member state of RASCOM. So within RASCOM, we liaise closely with the AU and also the member states, or the other institutions that also form part of the African Union, to ensure that our mandate is, we are able to dispatch our mandate accordingly. And this is includes both communications and also broadcasting.
Thank you. Can you explain the relationship between RASCOM and the newly formed African Space Agency?
You asking a follow-up question? I cannot hear you well now. I cannot hear you at all now.
Hang on, let me turn my back to you. Can you explain the relationship between RASCOM and the newly formed African Space Agency?
Please, can you please come again with your question?
Can you explain the relationship between RASCOM and the newly formed African Space Agency?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. The difference between RASCOM and African Space Agency. So RASCOM in itself is a satellite communications company, organization, for Africa. The African Space Agency is a broader space institution that was established to coordinate all the efforts, African efforts in space. So being in satellite communications, which RASCOM fits in indirectly under the African Space Agency, there are also other sectors within the African Space Agency, space navigation, satellite observation, and other sectors within the African Space Agency. So the African Space Agency is kind of collaborating all the efforts that the various institutions is doing under one umbrella. So there is a difference, because we also fall under the communication part of the African Space Agency as it stands.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-on question, John? Because I know you're very interested in that.
I have to say, I couldn't catch everything that was said, to be quite honest.
I don't think any of us could, unfortunately. So let's talk about regional agencies, first of all, because there's the international cooperation and there's the regional development, for want of a better word, how you focus on your region and what you do to promote it. So would you like to start off on that, please, Nicolaus?
Yeah, maybe I'll try with both, so maybe it becomes a bit more impressive. Two dimensions. So by the very nature, the European Space Agency is at its heart a agency that tries to entice, tries to engage on the regional level. If we consider Europe as the conglomerate, the countries of Europe as the regions. That's done via specific vehicles. We have the principle of geo-return. The European agency, when they're implementing activities, is highly industrialized. So 90% of the member states' contributions to the European Space Agency go back to the member states in terms of industrial contracts. And that's the, I would say, the mechanics, that's the content that is driving what I would call regional cohesion and enablement of large-scale projects that individual countries, regions cannot accomplish. And then there's a different dimension, that's something that comes out of the new way that we are implementing large systems. And here it becomes truly regional in a sense that it only concerns specific areas of a certain extent. One example is something that has been mentioned today, digital twins. We see in the context of the data that is being generated, whether it's Earth observation data, communication data, any type of data from space or even in situ data, that these are on a regional level integrated and utilized in the form of regional digital twins. Such digital twins exist for different environments, for different contexts, such as the Alps, for example, an alpine rim, digital twin, a digital twin of the Mediterranean. So these are manifestations of what I would call application agglomerates and data management agglomerates around the theme that affects a region. Another context in which we see a strong regional component is defense. It's clear that certain areas, certain small member states, for example, have specific ambitions in the defense context which are not the same as larger countries that are quite independent in terms of their autonomous resources to utilize space for defense and security. And we are seeing initiatives that are rising up, and we are trying to support and coordinate on the regional level. So these are the two dimensions of regional that I think in the European Space Agency context are the most relevant.
Should I talk about regional or international? I will try to connect the dots. At the UN COPOS, we have the usual 6 areas of the world, which are called regional groups. Not necessarily reflecting the geography, but these main regional groups are actually expressing usually their opinion that is agreed beforehand with those respective countries. And so there is some sort of level of understanding at each regional level of main strategic directions that obviously are being forth at the UN COPOS. And then it comes to each individual state to actually promote their national activities further on.
Yeah, sure. So the history of satellite technology and satellite applications is really synonymous with international and regional cooperation. We've seen examples on an international level like Intelsat and Inmarsat, and at a regional level, Eutelsat, EUMETSat, Arabsat. So that it's difficult to imagine that we could have achieved what we have achieved without this level of international cooperation, and unless, with some notable exceptions, the US obviously being one. It's difficult to imagine many individual countries having the resources to be able to achieve what we've achieved with the international, both international and regional cooperation. So I think it's extremely important to continue that way.
Can you hear me any better if I speak with the other mic? Obviously not. Timothy, do you want to speak about RASCOM and the regional cooperation within Africa? And then, if you would, talk about how you cooperate internationally with other agencies.
I struggle to hear, but I think I'm getting the question line. All right. So, RASCOM itself, we cooperate a lot with other institutions within the continent and also outside the continent. Currently, RASCOM has signed an MOU with Intersputnik, okay, which we become like observers in Intersputnik's board meetings. So we collaborate with them because Intersputnik, I think they are the oldest satellites, regional satellites operators or group that was formed, I think in the 70s, before RASCOM came in. So we liaise directly with them. We are even planning some trainings together. And maybe in November, which is AfricaCom, we're also teaming up to have one booth to also work together in that aspect. Now, we also making a move to also have a collaboration with Arabsat as well, and talks are on the way with the top executives as well, in order for us to have an MOU, because we believe that as regional organizations we need to collaborate and be able to work together in order for us to learn from best practices as well, and to be very relevant to the operations and the mandates why we were established in order to serve our member states effectively. And within the continent as well, we have signed some MOUs with even member states. For example, there are space agencies that handles their communication satellites. We are able to establish MOUs with them. For example, in Angola, we signed an MOU with Angosat, where aside their operations via their satellite, they also use the regional satellite as their backup in order for us to share traffic within each other. And also, even in Egypt, at NASAT, we also have an MOU with them, as well as Nigeria, which we are also working. So we try to establish relationship. For Europe, I think we have not yet signed any MOU to that effect. And RASCOM is very open. We're very open. We're trying to strategize ourselves currently, and we're open for partnership through various institutions to ensure that RASCOM lives up to its mandate and also move forward to service people effectively.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Timothy?
Your microphone, I cannot hear you now.
It's okay. It's okay, I was
Sorry.
looking at you, sorry. So, international cooperation and regional cooperation, it's one thing, I mean, there are different components of it. There's the political cooperation, there's the business cooperation, because at the end of the day, the people in your organization have to make money to survive and to fund all the developments. There's also the technical issues. So how do you ensure the relationship that all three of those stalks, stems, whatever you want to call them, work in perfect harmony? Who would like to take that?
Yeah, from a ESA perspective, I think the key emphasis is on the proximity to industry. So we are basically managing the procurements, the contracts with industry. And we're doing this, of course, in the programmatic context that is driven by the member states. So there's a strong, what I would call a control mechanism of member states on what kind of activities, what kind of context we are developing. And that's directly fed into the procurements, into the contracts that we are publishing and the opportunities that we are publishing. And thus, I think that's the most concrete way of assuring alignment of what I would call strategic, political, programmatic, and project technical needs. It's a flow down that is part of our portfolio.
I will go a level up. At the UN, we are all there as member states because we are members of the UN and we are paying the membership fee. And so I leave that side of the question outside because I cannot comment on that. Now, within COPUOS, we have currently 104 countries, member states, out of 193 UN member states. That means that 104 member states are actually interested in space activities, in peaceful uses of space activities. In addition to that, we have more than 60 permanent observers. And these permanent observers, including the European Space Agency is a permanent observer, COPUOS, they are contributing to the debates with their expertise. And these debates are actually happening in three layers. One is on scientific and technical level. The other one is on legal level, looking at how exactly are we responsible enough for the international commitments that we have as member states. And then the third level is the political one, where actually all